Because he's got so few MPs in the House of Commons, Nigel Farage's party, Reform UK, has very few privileges. It can't automatically be given seats on a committee, and it doesn't have any right to promote the elevation of peers, promote the elevation of its own supporters into the House of Lords. Nigel Farage, the master of political disruption, however, is back on familiar terrain, claiming democratic injustice and turning it into a rallying cry. This week, he wrote to the Prime Minister demanding the right to nominate Reform UK peers in the House of Lords. His case that his party, with only 4 MPs, nevertheless controls 10 councils, over 4 million votes in the 2024 general election, and regular leads in opinion polls, and it's being excluded from the red bench chamber, while smaller parties are in fact represented. On paper, Farage's grievance is straightforward. The Greens, who match Reform's Commons tally, have 2 working peers, the DUP 5, and the Welsh have and the Ulster Unionists all have seats in the Lords. Reform has none. In Farage's telling, this is not just oversight, it's diplomatic disparity, crying out to be remedied. But the reality is more complex. The Prime Minister holds the sole power to appoint political peers. There's no constitutional obligation to offer nominations to opposition parties, only a convention. And in practice, Downing Street asks leaders of established opposition parties to put forward names when the Prime Minister is creating his own appointments. Starmer has followed that with Labour, the Conservatives, the Liberals and Democrats, but not with Reform. Farage's letter emphasises that this is not about love for the Lords. He's long called for its abolition and replacement. This is about the system while it exists, and he knows that life peerages confer more than robes and titles. They grant media visibility, influence over legislation, and an air of establishment legitimacy, however grudgingly bestowed. Potential nominees already have tabloid gleam. Anne Widdecombe, the lady who I remember when I was on television, and I under the constraints of reality TV, I had to tell my guardians when I wanted to use the loo, and because there was a camera in the loo, it had to be turned off or turned round, or the sound had to be switched off. So the production wanted to know exactly what I was going to do in the loo. And so they were very specific, and I thought, I'm not giving them medical details. I will politicize it instead. So for something more significant, I called that a Farage. But if it was something minor and fairly routine, that was an Anne Widdecombe, a Widdecombe. And so the Farage did actually catch on, and I think it actually, I think the term turned up in the show itself at one point. But Widdecombe, the veteran minister, the veteran prisons minister, turned Brexit Party MEP and now Reform firebrand, the billionaire developer Nick Candy, who defected from conservative donor circles to bankroll Farage, and Zia Yusuf, the Goldman Sachs alumnus and luxury concierge magnate, who briefly resigned as Reform chair before returning as head of their Department of Government Efficiency. So they would have 3 peers if allowed. And supporters of the idea, such as Baroness Fox of Buckley, called it a legitimate request consistent with Labour's stated aim of improving diversity in the Lords. Critics, like Conservative peer Lord Hayward, dismiss it as premature for a party that's already lost 2 of its 5 MPs who were elected, and remains, in his words, an unproven force. There's irony here. Farage wants seats in an institution he spent decades deriding as undemocratic and outdated. It's akin to declaring the cricket pavilion a waste of space, but insisting you should have a reserved table in the members' lounge. For Starmer, this is a political judgment call. Granting Reform nominations risks legitimising them as the real opposition, a phrase Farage repeats with relish, and inviting more populist theatre in the Lords. Refusing them allows Farage to paint himself as the excluded voice of millions, playing the anti-establishment card he has wielded so effectively before. The wider debate is about more than Farage. It's about the strategic, elastic constitution of the United Kingdom, where an unelected second chamber of more than 800 members still shapes legislation, and where the Prime Minister can effectively handpick much of its membership. Former Cabinet Secretary Lord O'Donnell says that cries out for greater checks and balances And the constitutional scholars like Lord Norton point out that as long as the peerage creation remains in the Prime Minister's gift, it will always be politicised. So the question is not just whether Farage should get his peers, but whether anyone should get them this way. Until Lord's reform is seriously tackled, these periodic quarrels over appointments will keep flaring up, each one revealing the messy blend of convention, patronage and politics that sustains Britain's upper house. And in the meantime, Farage knows that even if Starmer says no, he's still won, because he's another headline, another grievance, and another chance to tell his voters that the system in Britain is stacked against them. Yahoo!